Welcome back to the JMach Podcast, featured at the Patriot All-America. Today, I'd like to introduce
Patrick Fitzhugh with USAA.
And a U.S. Air Force veteran himself.
Yes, sir.
Awesome, brother. Thank you for being here. Can you tell me what your role with USAA is and how it's related to the veteran community?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have the honor of serving as the regional site director for USAA's North Phoenix campus. We've got over 4,000 employees and about 1 million square feet. We've been in Phoenix for over 20 years, actually. So USAA definitely has been focused. Obviously, it's our mission of supporting the military and veteran community, but that has to happen outside of our walls as well. And we understand that and the importance of serving the community and giving back to veterans outside of the business that we do. There's still a lot of needs. And specifically, I'm really excited about being here because last year, USAA, we launched the Face the Fight campaign, and this was in partnership with the Humana Foundation and Reach Resilience Research. And between the three of us, we've now brought on over 120 national partners, and we have over $84 million committed to veteran suicide and military suicide, and making sure that we're doing hard work to impact that. So I think why I'm here, sorry for the long answer, man, is one, USAA loves to support the community where it lives and where it has employees. Two, is it's just a natural fit for our mission, the people we serve, and a lot of the work that we're doing around military and veteran suicide prevention.
Patrick, I want to take a time out and say thank you for doing that. Was that something that just happened to fall into your lap, or did you hear about it and volunteer to be on this team?
So I stepped into this role 5 years ago, and I'll tell you, in the 13 years that I've been working at USAA, the veteran employee population has been asking for that work. And for a long time, USAA had been very apprehensive or cautious, I'd say, about engaging the topic of suicide, because that's not something that the military and veteran community takes half-heartedly, right? We know if we're going to approach or engage in that topic, we're going to have to be leading it. And so, I think over a lot of years of hard conversation and hard work, it finally just came to be, and I was lucky to be in this role when that decision was made. So just this last July, we launched our first impact report of the lives saved, of the lives impacted. And, on our back of the napkin math that we're doing with a lot of universities and with the VA and Department of Veteran Services, right now we're kind of forecasting that through the work we're doing, we're going to save about 3,500 lives.
That's amazing. Plus, it's probably way higher than that, You
Right.
can't really calculate it.
You can't.
But I appreciate all the effort that you, yourself, and USAA is putting into fight veteran suicide and joining the community and veteran community together. I feel like that's a huge part to mental health.
Mm-hmm.
What does the Patriot All-America mean to you?
I didn't understand it until I attended the event. And when you kind of try and articulate it to people, it's really hard until you experience it yourself, because I haven't attended a golf or sporting event that really is so integrated in to focus on the military, right? So military and the veteran community, I'm going to say, is not a hot, sexy topic right now. And what I mean by that is, we're not engaged to the extent we were in like OIF and OEF, Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. And, at that time, the level of kind of patriotism and support that you saw in the community was very necessary for the veterans returning home. But also, I think it's core to who we are as a country, as the United States of America. And so when I see the Patriot, I think that this is foundational to our country, the idea of the community that the military wants to create, for all people to be able to show up and enjoy the beautiful weather of today without anyone, restricting them in any way. So I think the Patriot, to me, is really kind of the perfect example of what the community can do to honor and recognize not just the veteran and military community, but the future of America, right? We're taking college students who probably know very few military statistically, your golfers out here are not going to serve, right? And so a lot of times this is going to be the closest experience or connection that they're going to have to the military community. So above and beyond supporting the veterans and encouraging the military community and honoring them, I think we're setting the foundation for future generations of why service and why military service is so important to our culture and who we are as a country. Absolutely.
I couldn't have said that better myself, honestly.
Yeah.
And how has working with veterans affected your mental health?
So, I kind of shared on our quick ride over here, I had my own mental health crisis in 2019, Veterans Day weekend of 2019. And that was a month after volunteering for an organization called TAPS. Some of you might be familiar. It's the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. And this is a camp for children who've lost parents in combat. Well, this camp was different. This camp was specifically for children who lost parents to suicide. And so I went in there with an intention of serving and volunteering and supporting another individual. And that was a really great experience and connection. But as part of that, a lot of issues I had not dealt with came to the surface. And as hard and painful and difficult as that season of life was, man, the light at the end of the tunnel is true. Like what's on the other side of the peace that I have now, the anger I used to walk around with was just all consuming, to where I had physical, impacts of that stuff. So how is it? It's benefited me very personally because my mental health journey over the last 5 years has been incredible. And I can sit here and tell you today that I'm a person of hope and peace and love and kindness. And that definitely was not the case, even though I may have did a good job of portraying that on the outside. I think a lot of us carry a lot of things on the inside and we try and portray something else on the outside. And so I think the other power or benefit for my own personal health or mental health has been seeing people share their stories and being so vulnerable and so transparent. And there is power in that. There's power in talking and sharing your story. And that does not mean I have to sit here and tell you all my trauma and all the difficult stories, But what that does mean is I can talk to you about where I'm at today, right? Where my family was and where we're at today. My wife considers herself a caregiver because she had to be a caregiver at certain points in my mental health journey. And that meant for her to have a deeper understanding of mental health, of the veteran experience, of the military experience. And she's always risen to the occasion. So I think that's a little bit of a JRock.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm really grateful you were able to get the help that you needed and deserved to have. And I just want to remind you that you're not alone. But you made me think of one more question I want to ask outside of these is, what is your favorite coping tool? So when you feel yourself going back to the anger or frustrated or whatever it may be, what helps pull yourself out of that?
I call it the power of the pause.
Okay.
And that's, something I've kind of just coined recently. But really what I've learned is so much of whether it's anxiety or depression, whatever that emotional response is, I've learned that I don't have to necessarily react to it right away, and understanding that sometimes those emotions and feelings literally come from nowhere. They're not necessarily attached to anything. It's just my body was triggered by something and, it flooded those hormones and it caused this emotion. And now this emotion is connected to a thought, right? So I think understanding the power of the pause and what that means is if there's a trigger, realizing I don't have to fix it right away. I don't have to understand it right away. I need to find a way to maybe separate myself from the situation or from that moment. And I'll tell you that what that meant was difficult conversations with my wife or arguments or stressful situations at work. What that meant is I had to physically remove myself from the situation at times, go find a quiet place and just, meditate. Get my mind off of this moment in time and allow myself to process these emotions. Because the more that I did that, what I typically found was my emotional reaction was going to be the wrong reaction. And when I've reacted that way, I have to come back and apologize to my wife. The good news is the more and more that I've done this over the last 5 years, the shorter the pause has to be and the shorter of the interruption to my day-to-day life that those pauses have become. So what I mean by that is what may have required me to step away from my wife and family and, I'm in the garage for an hour before I'm able to ride these emotions out and realize everything's okay. Family's fantastic. They didn't trigger you. It was something inside you that used to take an hour. Now I can do it in the moment. Now I can take that pause in a difficult conversation, kind of identify where these emotions are coming from or if they're coming from nowhere. Maybe they're unrelated to this moment. And so the power of the pause has been incredibly powerful.
Thank you for sharing that with me, and I'll definitely have to start using that myself.
Yeah.
'Cause sometimes I need a long pause. And yeah. But anyways, do you believe golf can be a positive tool for battling mental health?
I laugh because I think it can take you one way or the other, just like all things in life. Here's what I think is great about golf when it comes to mental health. One is the power of community and connectiveness, right? I think when it comes to mental health, and I'm a spiritual man, I'm a believer in God, and I think whether it's a spiritual enemy or just the world, it wants you to isolate yourself. It wants you to stay home. Just surf the web, play video games, whatever those things are that keep you from interacting from other humans. So I think that's the beautiful thing about golf. It's a very approachable, safe way to connect with people. I've played threesomes with people who I didn't know before. And, by the end of 18 holes, you're just your best friends, right? Or you've learned, I played a hole once with this 84-year-old woman. She was on her own. I got me and my buddy, and she joined us. And her stories were incredible, talking about outliving her third husband. But you get to see other people go through life too. And I think that's the awesome thing of golf is everyone's got their story. We've all come from different backgrounds, but we all share the love for something together, right? It's just the love for this game. And I think it can bring people together from, I was a poor kid from the barrio in West Phoenix. And, you can go and you're playing with CEOs and executives on the course, and so I think that's the power of golf is really the community piece and the connectivity piece, because I'll tell you, my game on most times I play is not good for my mental health. And I got to remind myself that I don't play enough to get as angry as I do.
Right. Golf is stressful, but stress relieving at the same time.
I think once you find when you're in the, what's the term for it? When you're in the flow, right? And there's those holes where you're not worried about the swing or the stroke and everything's just kind of flowing. And I've found that same type of flow that you can find in golf, you can find that same flow and rhythm in your life outside of the game. And I think that's why people are so attracted to golf too, is because you're frustrated and trying to learn, and then there's that one swing where you feel the perfect connection, the perfect ping, and your ball goes right where you want it to. And that's the addictive part. It's I want that. And I think I think there's something in that experience, in that moment, that we're chasing outside and we're chasing through all aspects of our life, is just to find where we're in the flow and we're not concerned about anything else. We're just kind of experiencing life the way it was meant to be experienced, right? Right. And we've added all the stress. All the things wrong in our life, they weren't caused by God. It was caused by us, right? We've made ourselves as busy as we are. Yep. And so I think that's the incredible power of golf is you find something in that moment, and you can experience something, and it gives you a taste, and you want that again and again and again. So that's what brings me back. Yeah. I hope this doesn't offend you, but it's almost like a natural high, right? Oh, no, because absolutely. You no longer need a substance. Your substance is smacking the anger out of that ball. Right. Right. And if you would take your
mental health tool that you taught me, the pause method.
Yeah.
And you pause before you swung that golf club, you're probably going to have that clear ping. But nope, I like to think about everything, then overthink this shot, and then I'm slicing it right into that pond or into that house.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in physical fitness as well when it comes to mental health. I think for me personally, I think it's critical. I think for everybody it's important. And, you know, this last year I uncovered, I'm going to say it publicly, spin class, right?
Okay.
And my wife had been asking me forever. I hated it the first time. The second time I was okay. By the third time I was addicted. And here's why. It was one of these classes, not when you're like hiking a mountain, you're doing a lot of like choreographed stuff. There's music, there's lights, you're doing all these different touches and stuff. And why I learned I liked it is because when I'm so actively engaged, my brain, I can't sit here and think about work. I can't sit here and think about the setup or anything. I'm in the moment. And there's very few times throughout the day that I'm truly in the moment and I'm not thinking about 50,000 other things. And what started to happen is that I'm getting like really authentic and vulnerable here, but I don't care. Is this weird thing happened in spin class, and they always had like this final song and the cool down. And it's like, this was your time or whatever. And in those first few months of doing spin, I didn't tell my wife this, but in that cool down, I'd put a towel on my head and just kind of biking, and I'd cry. And I didn't know why I was crying. And I actually Googled this, like by month 2, I'm like, why the hell am I crying in spin class? Like, where's this coming from? And there was like a scientific explanation. And one of it was the power of the endorphins. 2 was all these emotions that I was gathering up throughout the day and not getting out. This was the one time where once I shut my brain off, my body started to process all these emotions it was carrying. And it was a lot of grief at first. And in those quiet moments, I'd be thinking of my buddies who were in my squad who are no longer alive, right? And it was just really, it was becoming kind of a painful thing, actually. But then one day I just turned it around, and rather than it being a time of thinking about the loss of these guys, I started thinking about the happy memories, and I started picturing the smiles and as we're goofing off. And I started taking it as a time of honoring them. And like, it's the end of that hour of biking your ass off. And you want to take it easy and you want to like slow down and kind of cool your body off. But instead, I turned it into, I'm pedaling for Brandon. I'm pedaling for Val. You know, those guys who aren't here anymore. And so it turned into like this really powerful moment of me, you know, a couple times a week, remembering my brothers, biking for them, and getting rid of the survivor's guilt and getting rid of that tearing myself down, negative self-talk, which I'm so good at, right? But when your mind is so focused and occupied on the physicality of what you're doing, for me, it allows all the space for that other stuff to happen. Also gets out, you know, any tension or aggression you had too. You can like really pedal the hell out of that bike sometimes.
Right. And I bet when you got off that bike, even after you cried for the first time and you didn't even realize what was happening, you probably felt lighter.
Dude, it was a great experience. And it was weird wanting to go back, knowing that I was going to be crying at the end of that hour. It's like, and I started to look forward to it.
Yeah, that's
now. And thankfully, I'm at the point now where I don't have tears. You know, I'm not crying. But that moment is still special and powerful. Where, you know, so often survivor's guilt will creep up. It's kind of like the boil the frog approach, that the survivor's guilt. Sometimes it comes strong, you know, with a movie or around Veterans Day or something. Where it just boom, you know, smacks you. But oftentimes I found it's this slow dial, right? It's that dimmer switch where just as I'm going through life and as I'm experiencing things day to day, that survivor's guilt will just slowly dial itself up. And so this intention of going in there and having this ritual of like honoring my brothers on a weekly basis, as stupid as it may sound, but it's those last 3 minutes when I'm smoked and I'm exhausted and I don't have it in me to give anymore, and I just lay it all out. right? And I'm smiling as I'm doing it because I'm picturing Val and Brandon and the stupid runs we did in the past when we were throwing up on these long runs, or on stupid training missions, or, out on the town. And they inspire me to show up better for myself.
That's amazing. And I'm really grateful that you took the time to open up and you didn't care that you were being vulnerable, because I feel this is what this podcast is all about. That vulnerability is what's going to connect us from veteran to civilian to community member to whatever you want to have your title as. Mm-hmm. If you're willing to get vulnerable and open up with other people, because I guarantee you, I'm sitting here thinking like, fuck, maybe I should start spin class because I know I need to let these tears out. I just haven't found a method that has allowed me to let more than 1 or 2 tears out right now.
Yeah.
So I need that. So I get to learn from you. Other people get to learn from you. But it also feels good because you're helping not only yourself, but you're helping me, whoever's watching. So I really appreciate you doing that for us, Patrick. And I would love to have you back on for a traditional JMach podcast in the future.
Hey, sign me up, brother. Whenever, wherever. I think, at the end of the day, this Patriot tournament, it's about community. Right. And it's bringing some of the best golfers in the world, and it's connecting it to a community who I think, if anything, deserves my brothers and sisters who aren't with us, the greatest honor to continue to remember them. Right. There's that Jewish adage, and it's in their tradition of, you die twice. And they said it earlier in a speech, and it's, you die a physical death, but the second death is when people stop speaking your name. So I think that's what I love about the Patriot, is it gives us that opportunity to keep speaking the names of those who deserve it the most.
Absolutely. And thank you, Patrick. I appreciate you taking the time.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.